Okay, for the rest of chapter 6, we're going to be working with exponents. So in this section, we're going to mostly focus on zero and negative exponents, which are both tricky things. Okay, so the first thing is vocabulary. If you look at this expression over here, if I say it, I say x to the n or x to the nth power. Okay, this big number is called the base. The little number up here is called the exponent. The exponent is always littler, and it's up and it's to the right. And when you see an exponent up here, it always is applied only to the base that's directly adjacent to it. We're going to have to be careful of that fact when we're evaluating these things. Okay, I'm going to tell you these two rules, but then in the next two sections, we'll show why this is actually true. So the first rule is that if you have something to the 0 power, it's going to equal to 1. The second rule is the negative exponent rule. If this exponent is negative, it actually means that it's going to move to the bottom of a fraction in order to turn positive. And actually, if it's on the bottom, it would come back up to the top. We'll practice those. Okay, so for each of these, we're going to simplify it. And when it says to simplify it, it means to evaluate any numbers you can and then rewrite it with positive exponents. So as long as anything that could be multiplied out gets multiplied out, and anything that had a negative exponent now becomes a positive exponent, we've done the best we can. We also are going to consolidate the bases, but we'll actually do that next class. Okay, so this first one says 5 to the 0. Well, according to this property, anything to the 0 power is going to equal to 1. So this is just 1. Okay, now I'm going to look at B. B has two different bases. It has 5 to the 0 and it has x to the third, and you kind of treat them as separate problems that are just multiplied together or squished next to each other. Okay, so if I just look at the first part, 5 to the 0, well, that's just 1. I learned that on the previous problem. Okay, now I have x to the third. Okay, it has a positive exponent. There's nothing to multiply out, so I just leave it x to the third. Okay, so my final answer is 1x to the third. I multiplied everything I could, and the exponents are positive. I could also just write x to the third because the 1 doesn't necessarily have to be there. Okay, let me keep going. Okay, this is 5 times m to the 0. I could treat them separately, so I do have this 5 in the front. I'm going to keep the 5 in the front. Next, I have m to the 0, and the 0 is only applying to the m. Okay, anything to the 0 power is 1, so this is going to be a 1 here, but I don't want it to look like 51. Because they're really being multiplied. So this is really 5 times 1, which equals to 5. So I simplified it. I multiplied everything I possibly could. I evaluated all the numbers, and all the exponents are positive. Okay, I'm going to keep going. Let's see. Now 2 to the third. Remember, if I do 2 to the third, I'm really doing 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. I'm going to bring down the multiplication dot. 7 to the 0. Anything to the 0 power, 1. So I have 8 times 1, which equals 8. And I showed all the steps I need to show, and I evaluated all the numbers I need to evaluate. Okay, now we're going to start throwing in some negative exponents. When you get the hang of this, it will not be bad, but it seems so weird at first. Okay, so this is x to the negative 2. The only problem with it is that it has a negative exponent. So according to this rule, if the exponent is negative, I move the base to the bottom of a fraction, and I can make the exponent positive. So even though this is weird, x to the negative 2 is going to be 1 over x to the positive 2. Once I move it to the bottom of the fraction, I can change the exponent to positive. Okay, now the exponents are positive, so this is my final answer. Okay, let me go ahead and look at the next one. This is m to the negative 4. Okay, so I'm going to make a fraction. Since it's negative, I'm going to move the m to the bottom of the fraction, and I'm going to change the negative exponent to a positive exponent. Because I have to have something in the numerator, I put a 1 up here. Okay, this is a simplified answer because I do not have any negative exponents and there's no numbers left to multiply out. Let's go to the next one. Okay, this is 3 to the negative 2. I don't like that negative exponent. If I see a negative exponent, I make a fraction line and I move it to the bottom. When I move it to the bottom, I can change it to a positive exponent. Since I have to have something at the top of the fraction, I make it a 1. Okay, now this is good. I have only positive exponents. But I also need to multiply anything if I can. So since 1 over 3 to the second power is really 1 over 3 times 3 is 9. So my final answer is 1/9. But I did show all my steps so that it's clear where I got the answer from. Okay, now I'm going to start mixing up the positives and the negatives. Okay, this has two different bases. The first base is x, and it's x to the 6th. Now the exponent is already positive, so there's nothing wrong with it. I'm just going to write x to the 6th. Okay, now the second one is y to the -2. That has a negative exponent, so I can't leave it there. Since it's a negative exponent, I'm going to move it to the bottom. And then I can change the negative exponent to a positive exponent. Okay, and this is a better answer because now it has only positive exponents. Okay, I'm going to keep going. Let's look at the first one, m to the -5. It's a negative exponent, so I have to move it. I'm going to move it to the bottom, and then I can make the exponent positive. Now n to the 3, that's already positive. I'm going to leave it alone and leave it at the top. Okay, 8x to the -5th. The 8, I mean, that's an 8. There's nothing wrong with 8. Okay, now I have x to the -5th. Since it has a negative exponent, I will move the base to the denominator, and then I can change the exponent to a positive. Okay, let me keep going, and I'm just going one by one with each factor. So m to the 0, oh shoot, what's m to the 0 is 1, just like it was before. N to the -3, since it's a negative exponent, I move the base n to the bottom, and then I make the exponent positive. My final answer has only positive exponents and nothing left to multiply. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, let's look at this one. M to the -4. The exponent is negative, so I move it to the bottom. Then I can change the exponent to a +4. Okay, let me look at this. Oh, this is n to the -3. The exponent is negative here too, so I'm going to move this n to the bottom also. Then I can change the exponent to a +3. Okay, this is good, but I have to put something at the top, so I'm going to put a 1 at the top. They're both negative exponents, they both went to the bottom. Okay, last row. X to the -2, y to the -5. The first base is x. X to the -2, since the exponent is negative, the base x moves to the bottom and the exponent changes to a +2. Y to the -5th. Since the exponent is negative, the base moves to the bottom and the exponent can change to a positive. Okay, since they're both at the bottom, I have to put something at the top, so I put a 1. You can always put 1 if there's nothing there. Keep going. Okay, 3 to the second. 3 to the second is 3 times 3, so this is 9. X to the -4, since it's a negative exponent, I move the x to the bottom, and then I can change the negative exponent to a positive exponent. Okay, 5 to the -2, I don't know what 5 to the -2 is, but it has a negative exponent, so I'm going to move it to the bottom. I move the 5 to the bottom, and then I can change it to a +2. The x to the 3, oh, that's actually fine the way it is because it's already positive. Okay, this is a better answer, but I can see in the denominator that I have 5 to the second power. 5 to the second power is 5 times 5, so I can make this a 25. So this is my best answer because I have positive exponent and I have multiplied anything I need to be multiplied out. Okay, last one's P. It has a twist. Okay, the 1, nothing wrong with the 1. Let's keep it at the top. Okay, now I look at the bottom. The bottom has m to the -3. Okay, it's a negative exponent, so I need to move it. But it's already at the bottom. Since it's already at the bottom, I'm going to move it up to the top, and then I can change the exponent to a positive. There's nothing at the bottom. I don't have to put anything there. I could put a 1 if you don't like to leave it blank. Okay. That's it for now. And again, I'll show you why that the x to the 0 equals 1 and why x to the negative n equals 1 to the x to the n later in this chapter when we get to those properties.